Namaskar. I am Dr. Aarti Chaudhary, Assistant Professor in the Department of Ancient Indian History, Culture and Archaeology at Vasant Kanya Mahavidyalaya, Banaras Hindu University. Welcome back. I welcome you all in this 12-week course, History of Science and Technology in Ancient India from Harappan Civilization to 7th century CE. Today, we are going to discuss Module 6, Lecture 4. The title of Module 6 is Sciences in the Vedic Literature Part 2 and the title of the lecture is The Doctrine of 5 Elements. In our last lecture, we have discussed about Vedic metallurgy, about Vedic botany and agricultural practices as well as the ecological science of Vedic literature. Now, we are going to discuss about the doctrine of 5 elements. So, first the learning objectives of this topic is to understand the composition of the universe and the human body. Second objective is to know the Indian school of thought in this concept of 5 elements. And the final objective of this topic is to analyze spiritual and philosophical insight on 5 elements in ancient India. In this topic, we are going to discuss what are the 5 elements, development of the 5 elements in Indian thought and philosophical schools and the 5 elements. Rooted in the profound vision of the Ved, the doctrine of the 5 elements known as Panchabhutas, Mahabhutani provide a holistic understanding of the cosmos. This framework, emerging from universal concepts found in Vedic thought, was developed to explain the diverse and dynamic nature of the material world. The 5 elements, which is Prithvi, Earth, Up, somewhere you will also find Apah, A-P-A-H, both are correct. Here I mention Up, water, Tejas, fire, Vayu, air and Akash, space. As part of an inseparable and unified whole, are not just physical substance, they embody deeper philosophical and metaphysical principles. The doctrine of the 5 elements Panchabhutas as articulated in ancient Indian thought presents a holistic framework that parallels early scientific attempts to understand the natural world. Now, this slide shows what are the 5 elements? Prithvi, Apa, Vayu, Agni, Tejas, Akash. These all elements are very necessary for the building of that particular universe. Even the human body, the all living and non-living things are made of these Panchabhut. These Panchabhuts are the basic fundamental necessity of any living being, and the balance of these Panchamahabhut is very significant for the survival of the universe and for the survival of the livelihood on this universe. Now, the development of the 5 elements in Indian thought, how the 5 elements developed and how this opinion, this theory emerged, let us see. Early belief in water as the primary element, water, which is life. So, the basic element is water. Brihadaranyaka Upanishad mentioned, in the beginning the world was just water. Chandogya Upanishad mentioned all creation, for instance, gods, humans, animals, plants, etc. is seen as a solidified form of water. Kaushitaki Upanishad mentioned, it declares that water are the world of Brahma. So, the ancient texts mention that water is the basic elements for the life. Now, evolution of elemental theory. Chandogya Upanishad mentioned Brahma, desiring to be many, created fire, Tejas, water, up, and earth, Shiti, and entered into these three for the proper survival, for the proper working aspect, for the proper working management of these three. Brahma entered into these all three. So, the concept of Brahma, every Panchabhut is the basics of the Brahma, is mentioned in our literature. It shows a progressive understanding of the universe through elemental creation. Now, Upanishadic view on the five elements, because Upanishad gave a plethora of information regarding this Panchabhut. So, we have to focus on the explanation of this Upanishad in the particular time period. Sequential creation. In Taittiriya Upanishad mentioned that all these Panchabhut is deeply connected to each other, and one is the factor for the originating of the second factor. Like from Atma, the self, the Brahma, Akash originated. From space, Akash, Vayu is originated. From air, Agni is originated. From fire, water is originated. From water, Prithvi is originated, and from earth, herbs, food, semen, person, Purush, everything was dependent, every livelihood was dependent, even current period, every livelihood is depending on earth. Now, example from the Aitareya Upanishad concepts the five elements directly to Brahma, the ultimate cosmic principle, because Brahma is the originator of whole universe. Maitreya Upanishad describe Brahma as a cosmic tree and rooted above in the transcendental rim. Branches below are the five elements Akash, Vayu, Tejas, water, Prithvi. This imaginary emphasizes the connection between the physical universe and the higher spiritual reality. See, all these things are basically related to the spirituality, because these things are very precious. These are the main original, these are the original sources which given to the universe, to the all livelihood. So, this is directly related to the Brahma, because he is the originator of this universe, which is mentioned in the Vedic text and the later literary text. Upanishadic roots of the Tanmatra doctrine. So, then first you have to understand what is Tanmatra. The notion of Tanmatra appears to have its early foundations in some of the later Upanishadic texts. The Prashna Upanishad refers to subtle elemental forms using terms like Prithvi, Matra, earth essence, Apo Matra, water essence, among others. The Maitreya Upanishad also makes direct mention of Tanmatra in a similar philosophical context. This subtle concept likely influenced the development of the Sankhya system, which built a more structured explanation of cosmic evolution. In Sankhya philosophy, the Tanmatras serve as the intermediary principle through which the gross elements Mahabhut emerge from subtler forms. The origin of the concept of Tanmatra can be found in some of the later Upanishad. In the Prashna Upanishad, the subtle states are called Prithvi Matra, Apo Matra, and the like. The Maitri Upanishad mention the word Tanmatra in the same context. It can be conjectured that these Upanishadic ideas might have influenced the later exponent of the Sankhya school to explain the evolution of the gross matter from the primary Tanmatras. Philosophical school and the five elements, because these five elements have been studied by many scholars, many rishis throughout the years, what we found from the literary sources. So, we have to focus on these literary sources and their explanation deeply, what they said on the basis of their own experience, on the basis of their own experiments. Let us see. The Vedic based system Sankhya, Nyaya and Vaisheshik have laid special emphasis on the five elements. Jainism, Buddhism and Charvak acknowledge only four elements excluding space. The Buddhism and Jainism doesn't count Akash on their five elements, they believe on four elements, and the Vedic system Sankhya, Nyaya and Vaisheshik emphasis on five elements. So, these are the factors for the different beliefs according to their own observation, their own ideology. First, we have to see Sankhya. The Sankhya school explains that the world is made of two main things: consciousness, Purusha, and matter of nature, Prakriti. This helps to understand that the true self is pure awareness which is separate from body and mind. By realizing this, anyone can be free from suffering and find peace. Nyaya. The Nyaya school of thought focused on how to think clearly and logically. It teaches how to ask the right questions, find proof and understand things correctly. It shows the path of truth and liberation. Vaisheshik. The Vaisheshik school helps us to understand the structure of the universe by breaking it down into tiny parts such as atoms and other categories. It teaches us to observe and analyze the world carefully and move towards spiritual freedom. So, these are the basic schools which have done deep study, which have been the foundation of the study of these five elements. These elements are very important to understand the gradual origination and the gradual development of the livelihood or the human being. And these nature is deeply connected with the human body as well. They balanced with the human body. The Sankhya explanation on Tanmatra and Mahabhut. In the enumeration of totality, the five Tanmatra and their corresponding five elements hold special importance. A Tanmatra is considered invisible and eternal. Basically, it is related to the origin of the five elements. The exact nature of Tanmatra is difficult to define, that is why I already told it is just related to the origination of the five elements. They may possess quality of both mind and matter. The mind and matter, what we are doing is our activity, and how we will decide what activity I have to do. Then the balance of mind with this activity is really very important, and the Panchabhut is responsible for the clear concept of mind which is already mentioned in Sankhya, Nyaya and Vaisheshik school, that these things are really important for the balancing, for the logical practice by the human being. Tanmatra seem to represent the core essence of each element in its finest, most subtle form. They likely carry the inherent power to affect their respective senses. This structure is basically related to the classical Sankhya, has the following enumeration. First one is Prakriti and Purush, who are responsible for the origination of this whole world. And then consciousness is originated by the Prakriti and Purush. This consciousness means the decision made by the Prakriti and Purush for the growth of this particular world. And then point is Ahankar, ego, again mind, which control our emotion, whether it is Ahankar, ego or some other kind of emotion. And these mind also give instruction to our 10 indri, and Ahankar is just controlled by these 5 elements, 5 tanmatra, which is responsible for the complete holistic development of a human mind and the human body, and these 5 tanmatra is responsible for the 5 bhoot, origination of the 5 elements. So, these all things are basically related to the proper management of human body and mind, and these mind and body balancing practices is very necessary, is very significant for the successful completion, successful activity whatever doing by the human being. Now, these structure gave information regarding the different attributes of the different Panchabhut, like from Shabd, the main attribute of Shabd is sound, and from Shabd and Spara, the main attribute is touch. From Shabd, Spars and Roop, color is the main attribute, and from Shabd, Spars, Roop and Ras, taste is the main attribute of these all things, and from Shabd, Sparsh, Roop, Ras and Gandh, odor is the main attribute of all these practices. Now, from Shabd, Tanmatra emerged Akash, and from Shabd and Sparsh, Tanmatra emerged Vayu. From Shabd, Sparsh and Roop, Tanmatra emerged Tejas, light. From Shabd, Sparsh, Roop and Ras, Tanmatra emerged up, water. And from Shabd, Sparsh, Roop, Ras and Gandh, order, Tanmatras emerged Prithvi. So, these all things are basically related to the main practice of these Panch Bhoot, which is the human being are the assimilation of these Panch Mahabhut, the generation of the gross matter in terms of 5 elements out of Tanmatra. Which kind of Tanmatra is responsible for which kind of Panch Mahabhut, this slide shows this particular thing. Now, each element is associated with specific sensory attributes. So, we can imagine, we can sense these attributes. So, let us start with Akash. Akash is space or ether, the attribute is sound. Vayu, sound and touch, which is also called Sparsh. Tejas, fire, the attribute is sound, touch and form, Roop, whatever we just see with our eyes. Up, water, the main attribute is sound, touch, form and taste, which is considered as Ras. And Prithvi, earth, sound, touch, form, taste and smell, which is the attribute responsible for these all things, is Gandh. Two key observation from this model is the attributes are structured around the 5 senses, The 5 gross elements are defined through these sensory properties. So, we can sense these all things. We cannot sense Akash directly, but we can sense the Shabda, we can sense the sound. So, the sound is basically attribute of the Akash. Now, this framework present an integrated view of reality. Tanmatra are the subtle essence capable of affecting the sense. The Mahabhut elements are the gross manifestations of these essences. The subtle Tanmatra are seen as the foundational basis for the gross forms. Sankhya perspective on the 5 elements and transformation. According to Sankhya philosophy, all gross substance are formed through the grouping and regrouping of the 5 basic elements. Sankhya upholds the theory of Satkara Yavada on doctrine of pre-existent effect, which state nothing truly new is created. What appears as new already exists in a subtle unmanifest form. Creation is thus seen as a rearrangement of or transformation parinam of what already exists. The 5 elements serve as the medium of transformation, enabling the manifestation of subtle potential into gross reality. Influence of Sankhya and the 5 elements on Ayurveda. We all know that Ayurveda is the science of life, and in Ayurveda the balancing of Vata, Kapha and Pitta is very necessary for the healthiness of a body, and this Vata, Kapha and Pitta is basically managed by this Panchamahabhuta. So, in Ayurveda the Panchabhuta is very important. Philosophical foundation, if we see, then Ayurveda is deeply rooted in Sankhya philosophy, adapting its doctrine with specific relevance to health and the human body. The 5 elements are considered fundamental to the composition of both organic and inorganic matter. The constitution of body and substance. All substance including medicines are believed to be composed of the 5 elements Panchamahabhutas. Each sensory organ, Indriya, is built from all 5 elements. The human body is understood as a union of the 5 elements and the soul, Atma. Embryological view from Sushrut Samhita. Just have an view on the Sushrut Samhita, what Sushrut said about this. During embryonic development, Rajas activate transformation, water up sustains moisture, Prithvi earth provides shape and stability, Akash shape creates expansiveness and growth. Together these elements form the body, Sharir. So, I already told the Ayurveda is completely based on the balancing of these Panch Mahabhut on Vata, Kapha and Pitta, and by the explanation of Sushrut, which is found in Sushrut Samhita, we can understand how a embryo, how a fetus just found growth in for its completion of the body structure. Elemental classification in Ayurveda. The Ayurveda identifies 5 elements based substances: Akashiya Dravya, space substance; Vayuviya Dravya, air substance; Tejas Dravya, fire substance; Apaya Dravya, water substance; Prithvi Dravya, earth substance. Each substance contains all 5 elements with one being dominant. So, in Sankhya philosophy, the 5 elements arises from Prakriti, the unmanifest source of the universe, which is in equilibrium with the 3 gun Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. These gun interact with Purush, evolving into both subtle and gross matter. The elements emerge from their combinations, illustrating continuous transformation and the indestructibility of matter as the gunas continually shape the universe. Nyaya and Vaisheshik, the view of Nyaya and Vaisheshik on earth, Prithvi. First we see the philosophical definition. In Nyaya Vaisheshik, earth is a fundamental substance that serves as the basis for qualities, actions, perception and material reality. Two forms were found. Earth exists in two kinds, eternal as atom and evanescent as observable products formed by atomic combinations. Threefold products. Earth's products are the three types. First is body, physical form. Second, sense organ, olfactory organ, and third, object, inorganic like rock, minerals, gems, and organic like plants, herbs, trees, fruits. Special quality of earth. The distinctive quality Vishesh gun of earth is odor, gandh, which is perceived through the nose. And now the attributes which is mentioned in Nyaya Vaisheshik related to earth is, earth has 14 qualities including color, taste, smell, touch, number, size, distinctness, conjunction, disjunction, distance, proximity, gravity, fluidity and faculty. Water. Similar to earth, water also exists in two forms, eternal, atom, non-eternal, products, body, sense organ, objects. Body, reason of Varun, sense is organ, taste. Object is rivers, ocean, moon, which is directly related to the water, and special quality is taste, color is white, and 14 qualities mentioned for the water: color, taste, touch, number, dimensions, distinctness, conjunction, disjunction, distance, proximity, gravity, viscidity, fluidity and faculty. Now the term is fire, Tejas. Fire is white, brilliant and of two kinds, eternal atom and non-eternal products. Products form non-eternal. Fire appears as body in the sun, sense organ, visual and objects. Type of objects. Object fire is of fourfold: earthly, wooden fire, heavenly, sun, lightning, stomach, digestion and mineral in metal like gold. Special quality of color is the unique quality that distinguishes fire. Total qualities. Fire possesses 11 qualities: color, touch, number, dimensions, distinctness, conjunction, distance, disjunction, proximity, fluidity and faculty. This fire is very important. In Rig Veda there is a much more elaborative explanation about this fire, because fire is pious, fire is pure and fire is responsible for the yajna performance, and yajna are directly related to the tribute of the particular god. Now Vayu, air. Nature is, air is eternal, atomic and non-eternal products. Product forms. Air appears as body in the atmospheric region, sense organ, tactile, pervading the body, object, perceived air and breath, moves fluids in the body. Qualities. Air has touch, number, dimension, distinctness, conjunction, disjunction, proximity, distance and faculty. So we can imagine the water, what we have observed about water is very limited information. What the different philosophy said about this water is just an miracle. These are so powerful which give different type of energy to us. these Panchabhutas are really so important. What we know is very limited, but when we understand these particular schools of thought, then we can realize how much they are important and they are just beyond the limitations. Air's motion is transferable, triac, moving clouds, enabling rains and preventing heavy objects from falling. Air moves fluids and secretions within the body, performing distinct philosophical functions. Now the explanation about Akash or ether. Akash is non-material, all pervading the fifth element. Sound is the unique quality of Akash. Akash has sound, number, dimension, distinctness, conjunction and disjunction. The auditory sense organ is related to Akash. Akash is the medium through which sound is transmitted, exciting everywhere. Now classification of sensory objects, because these sensory organs are directly related to the Panch Mahabhut. All sensory objects are categorized based on the 5 elements which represent atomic stage, gross matter, sense, forms and attributes. Elemental composition of senses. In the Nyaya Vaisheshik system, each sensory organ is made of a specific element. For instance, eye, visual, fire, tongue, gustatory, water, nose, olfactory, earth, skin, tactile, air, ear, auditory, ether. Now, principle of like apprehending like. The idea that each sensory organ is composed of the same element as the specific attribute it perceives. For instance, the eye perceives color, which is the attribute of fire. We have to understand that like apprehending like means if there is similarity between the knower and known, then the knowledge arises. Knowledge basically depends on the knowledge of knower and known connection. Elemental connection to sensory experience. The eye perceive color, which is linked to the fire, the tongue perceive taste, which is linked to water and so on for the other senses. Limitation of the principle. The principle of like apprehending like does not extend to the mind manas, which experiences quality like pleasure and pain. Absence of substance in the mind. Unlike the sensory organ, the mind is not made of any substance that possesses the qualities it experiences like pleasure or pain. Nyaya Vaisheshik and Dravya, substance. The view of the 5 elements in Nyaya Vaisheshik is part of the broader concept of Dravya, substance, which is one of the 6 categories of reality. The 6 categories of Nyaya Vaisheshik are Dravya, Guna, Karma, Samanya, Vises, Samavaya. They are considered real entities in the Nyaya Vaisheshik system, not just subjective ideas. Substance as the most important category, Dravya, is seen as the most important category because it is the substratum asraya for the other category. It provides the foundation for the attributes, action and other categories. There are 9 types of substance: Prithvi, Up, Tejas, Vayu, Akash, Dis, Kal, Atma and Manas. Classification of substance. The substance are classified into material like earth, water, fire, air, ubiquitous, earth, space, time and conscious substance, self, mind, forming an integrated and rational view of the world. Substance and attributes. In Nyaya Vaisheshik, attributes cannot exist independently of substance, they inhere within it. However, the substance is not identical to the sum of its qualities, distinguishing it from other philosophical view like that the Sankhya and Buddhism, which have different conception of matter. Yes, they are different because the ideology is different, the experience is different, and the observation is different. These all things are responsible for the different ideologies in Sankhya, Nyaya, Vaisheshik, in Buddhism and Jainism. On the basis of these whole explanation or interpretation, we can say the doctrine of the five elements earth, prithvi, water, apa, fire, tejas, air, vayu and ether or sky, akash forms the foundational framework of Indian cosmology, metaphysics and natural philosophy. Nyaya Vaisheshik, this doctrine represents a profound understanding of the universe as an interconnected and living reality. Each element corresponds not only to material substance but also to sensory experiences, qualities and cosmological functions. The principle of like apprehending like beautifully explain the composition of sense organ in relation to these elements. Importantly, this view reflects a deep reverence for nature where the physical world is imbued with divinity and consciousness. The doctrine invites us to perceive the universe not as a separate inert object but as a dynamic interdependent whole where the elements unite the spiritual, sensory and material dimensions of the existence. In today's context, it inspires a more holistic, respectful and sustainable relationship with nature and the environment. So, in conclusion, we can say the doctrine of five element, the concept of five element is basically related to the metaphysics of the cosmology, where we can understand how the things appear, how the things built with the help of these Panch Mahabhut, and these Panch Mahabhut are basically beyond with the limitation. We have to study it in both way, in spiritual way, in mythological way and in scientific way, because the mind, the body, the matter is deeply interconnected with each other, and when we understand these all things together, then we can understand the concept of Panch Mahabhut very clearly. So, if you want to enhance your or knowledge on this topic, then you can consult these reference which is just showing on the slide. Thank you for your patient listening. Namaskar.